Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Our guest today is one of the foremost political voices in the United States, a Vietnam War veteran, a former POW, prisoner of war. He's long been known as a maverick within the Republican Party. He's also a stalwart of that party, a longtime senator and the presidential nominee in 2008. Arizona Senator John McCain joins me now from Phoenix. Senator, thank you for speaking to France 24 today.
Thank you.
You've just returned from the Turkish-Syrian border, where tens of thousands of Syrians have fled the violence and taken refuge. What did you see there, and what stories did people tell you?
Well, we saw a lot of misery, as much as 25,000 people living in tents and very difficult conditions. We heard from people firsthand stories of murder, rape, torture, of the most horrendous fashion. And we also saw several who were freshly wounded who had gotten across the border as well. It's very moving to see young children and women and men forced into the situation that they are in. I also, by the way, we also met with the Syrian military liberation army leaders, and we also met with the Syrian National the Free Syrian Army, the Free Syrian Army and the Syrian National Council as well.
You've been very vocal in calling for armed intervention in Syria, in fact, for U.S. airstrikes. Many analysts and Middle East experts disagree with this. They say it would only worsen the bloodshed. What's your response to that?
All I can say is that if they think that it is acceptable for Bashar Assad with a supply of Russian arms, with Iranians on the ground, as well as Iranian help, against people who are virtually defenseless, then I respect their opinion. I strongly disagree with it. Bashar Assad has gone from shooting people to use of tanks and artillery. In recent days, he is now using helicopters to slaughter his own people. The, quote, ceasefire that was already violated once that they agreed to with the Arab League. Now this one, they are putting conditions on it. If he withdraws from the cities, then the people will take to the streets again, and that will not happen. I am confident, unfortunately, tragically confident, that you will see a renewal of the fighting. And all we've done is give him an opportunity to kill more people. During this period of time, there's been 7,000 new refugees into the refugee camps in Turkey.
Senator, you've advocated airstrikes on Syria. Do you think airstrikes are really going to protect the population? Will it make Syria's civilians safer?
Well, what we have advocated is multilateral, not unilateral action by the United States. We have advocated the establishment of sanctuaries, which the Turkish Prime Minister just yesterday made allusion to. We have made allusion to foreign air power that could be used to protect a sanctuary area from the Syrian army while they organize, treat the people medically, and also form a government, much as the way that the Transition National Council did in Benghazi in Libya. They would have to be protected if there were sanctuaries. But again, no American boots on the ground, a multinational effort, especially in cooperation with the Gulf states, the Saudis, and hopefully our European friends.
You say establishing safe zones for civilians and using international air power. Is that really enough, though? Are you confident that boots on the ground will not be required? Syria being a fairly large country and Bashar al-Assad's army being quite powerful.
Thank you for that question. I think it's important that we understand that boots on the ground, American or European, would be very harmful to the cause. I think it could arouse sympathy for Bashar Assad. I believe that the people who are fighting Bashar Assad, if properly equipped with given sufficient arms and protections, they could succeed. Look, right now, it's artillery and tanks against Kalashnikovs. The price of a bullet in the black market is now up to $4. They need help. This is not a fair fight. It is Russian arms that are helping Bashar Assad kill and massacre his own people. So we intervened in Bosnia, we intervened in Kosovo, we wish we had intervened in Rwanda, we intervened in Libya. We should also act internationally in Syria to stop the massacres.
So you're saying the international community should arm Syria's opposition. One obvious objection to this, though, is that more weapons can only bring more violence and more death.
Well, right now, the violence and death has been escalated by Bashar Assad because the people continue to resist him. And as I've said already several times, it's an unfair fight. They're using Russian arms. They're using attack helicopters. They are using Iranians on the ground that are torturing and murdering and raping people. This is not something that we, with our standards and values, not to mention the UN Charter, should stand by and watch when we are able to do something about it. And we are able to do something about it. The same people that are saying now we can't do anything about it are the same people that said we couldn't do anything in Libya, the same people that said the same thing about Bosnia and Kosovo. And so I've seen this movie before.
Let's look at how this is being perceived in U.S. public opinion. The United States has just pulled out of Iraq a few months ago. It still has a significant presence in Afghanistan. Would the public, and crucially, would Congress back another military intervention? Isn't this a non-starter?
I think, first of all, Americans are very war-weary, and understandably, with Iraq and Afghanistan, as you mentioned. But this is where presidential leadership comes in. This is where the president tells the American people why what Bashar Assad is doing is an offense to our standards, our values, our commitments, our solemn commitments that all individuals are endowed with certain inalienable rights. And by the way, you might also mention that if Bashar Assad fell, it would be the greatest blow to Iran in the last 25 years. They would lose their connections with Hezbollah and in Lebanon. They would lose a great deal if Bashar Assad fell, and that is something else, I think, that should be at least a consideration.
You mentioned the Iran-Syria axis. Is that one of the major benefits for the United States, that it could get out of such an intervention? Because the risks are also enormous of sparking a regional conflagration, a regional war, potentially. So if we look at U.S. interest, it is a risky calculation.
Well, I'm not sure who else would intervene on the side of Bashar Assad and any more vigorously than the Iranians and the Russians are doing now. But I think it also is an event with Bashar Assad falling could have a profound effect on the whole equation and balance of power in the Middle East, and it would have to be in our favor. It would be an enormous blow to Hezbollah and Hamas. It would be a blow to Iranians' ability to use their client state Syria for a variety of reasons, including, as they used to, sending foreign fighters into Iraq to kill Americans. So, but most importantly here, I think that as we watch people who are tortured and raped and murdered, and all you have to do is turn on any television program, news program, and you'll see it. This is an offense to everything we stand for and believe in. And we, the strongest military alliance in the world, NATO, the strongest military nation in the world, the United States, we should be able to do something about this. If we can't, we ought to reevaluate where our tax dollars are going.
Senator McCain, you mentioned the parallel, you drew the parallel with the interventions in Bosnia, in Kosovo, in Libya, where the responsibility to protect was invoked to justify the intervention. If we compare the situation in Syria to Muammar Gaddafi's Libya, isn't Bashar al-Assad's army much more powerful, much more difficult to defeat?
I think it's no doubt that Syria has formidable military, including the latest Russian air defenses. Again, I repeat, if the United States air assets can't take out Syrian air defense systems, then our taxpayers should be outraged that we have wasted their taxpayers' dollars. And again, I think the important thing is to allow the Syrian freedom fighters, Syrian Freedom Army should be allowed to have weapons with which to defend themselves and should be able to at least give some balance in this unfair fight. And that's really what this is all about.
Looking away from the military situation for a moment, if we look at the diplomatic option, do you think there's still a chance diplomacy can work, or the UN Security Council can still exert enough pressure?
Well, obviously that depends a great deal on Russia and China, and so far we have seen no movement on the part of Russia to pass a resolution that would have the effect of aiding the Syrian resistance. So that, and also China. But Russia and China should also understand that their reputation in that part of the world is being very badly damaged. And by the way, I'd like to express my appreciation to the strong words of support that the French government and people have given the people of Syria. There's a long history between the two countries.
For my last quick question, I'm going to turn to another topic and the US presidential race, the campaign which is underway. The Republican field in particular. Rick Santorum just pulled out. It looks like Mitt Romney has a lock on the Republican nomination. Do you think he'll be able to unite the party? And do you think a Romney-Santorum ticket could be one way to do that?
Well, I'd like to give you a very frank answer. Yes, I think we can unite the party. And I still think we have a good chance of victory in November. But I also must tell you that Mitt Romney's favorability ratings have fallen badly because of the kind of campaign that's been going on, and it has been enormously to the benefit of President Obama. So we got an uphill fight. We can still win, but the tenor of this primary campaign was harmful to Mitt Romney as far as his favorability is concerned. So we got a lot of work to do, but we can do it.
All right, so Mitt Romney's got his work cut out for him there. Arizona Senator John McCain, thanks very much indeed for joining us. And thank you at home for watching. Do stay tuned. More news is coming up on France 24.